At the end of the day, what we're trying to do in Bitcoin is have a ledger that records all of the transactions that we can all verify independently. I'd like to continue with this demonstration. Imagine if I were to tell you, I'd like you to take that first word, Texas, just as I've presented it here. You can add anything to it, anything, completely random. You must begin your input, though, with the word Texas, just as I've started here. And if you can find a hash value that begins with the letter A, I'll pay you $170,000. Would you be interested in attempting that? I think that you would, and that's precisely the incentive provided to Bitcoin miners. They come into the market and take information and hash it, seeking a reward in Bitcoin. Let's continue with the demonstration. I could start Texas forever, and we can see it starts with a 3, so we haven't found our match. Texas are Texas. Of course, that's our song for the state of Texas, but also doesn't meet the stipulated requirements. Texas is bigger than France, a true statement, but still doesn't meet our requirements. Texas A&M University. I'm a proud former student of Texas A&M, but this also doesn't meet our requirements. Throughout these different iterations of SHA-256, again, you can see each is completely different, the same length output, all starting with the same first word, and then a random sequence of letters in the input thereafter. Texas is Bitcoin country. We see the hash output here begins with the letter A. This was a winning entry. Not the only one. I'm sure there are others. But at least in this exercise, it's the first one that we've arrived to that meets the target that we stipulated at the beginning of the exercise. This, in a nutshell, is the Bitcoin mining process. The hash rate of the Bitcoin network has currently risen to 379 exahash per second. And I've represented that number here on this slide just so you can see how many zeros that is every second. So while you can go onto a free online SHA-256 calculator and perhaps hash a couple of times per second, imagine the amount of competition going on with 379 exahash. So how does this really compare to Bitcoin mining? The image in the center of the slide here, again, is from the white paper, and it represents a block within Bitcoin. What the block contains is important information for the network, the previous hash from the block before it, and the transactions. That's what the TX below the block represents. At the end of the day, what we're trying to do in Bitcoin is have a ledger that records all of the transactions that we can all verify independently in order to solve that Byzantine general's problem. And the next part here is perhaps the most important to understand, and that's the nonce. That's simply a random number. So think of our example. The input information was Texas. Texas here represents the different transactions that we're trying to verify and the previous hash from the last valid block so that there's a constant connection and continuation of the Bitcoin network so that we can have a record of all valid transactions. The nonce was whatever we added to Texas. The winning nonce was is Bitcoin country. Texas is Bitcoin country. So the is Bitcoin country part of that is our proof of work. This is what Bitcoin mining is all about, that proof of work. It's taking information that has value to us, our transactions that we want to validate, running it through the SHA-256 algorithm with a nonce, seeking to meet the target that the network establishes. So the difficulty refers to that relative probability of finding a value below the target. The network establishes a target by determining that there are a certain number of zeros that have to occur at the beginning of the hash output. So again, our target for our exercise was simply that the first letter in the output be A. It's a fairly easy target. Over time, difficulty on the Bitcoin network is adjusted through a difficulty adjustment that occurs every 2016 blocks, which is approximately every 2 weeks. And the goal or the reason for having that difficulty adjustment is to maintain a target block time of 10 minutes. So as the hash rate increases, as more people start to participate in the network and compete for the Bitcoin that is granted for each successful block, the difficulty adjustment increases the difficulty. It increases the number of zeros that must be at the beginning of that hash output. And this is an important way that we can trust the validation of transactions in the network.
Hey, it's Amy. Click over here to subscribe, click over here for more content, and we'll see you next time.